4 years there, I was able to put, you know, 400 plus shows under my belt, and that is the stuff. It's reps, man. This industry is about the reps because, like we said, especially on the live side, you never know what's going to happen. So the only way you can get better is get those reps, and each one you're going to learn something new. Each director you work with, you're going to learn something new. And
What up? It's your boy Blue Magic, owner of For Your Wear and one half of the Mixed Tag Show. Now, I know you've seen the announcement for some of your favorite podcasts in wrestling. I've decided to expand my business to become a vendor so that people from the wrestling community have a better way to communicate with some of their favorites. So check out foryourwear.com and see if your favorite podcast on wrestling has partnered up with me. If not, let them know that they should. Also, if you're looking for a vendor for your merchandise, reach out to me at Blue Magic Grind, spell how it's found on Twitter and Instagram, or at ForYourWear, FORURWEAR, on Twitter and on Instagram. Shout out to Brian H. Waters and Breaking Through Glass Ceiling. Their merchandise are already up, and they're one of the first ones that supported, so go support them. Alright? Peace.
When I moved to Connecticut to work at ESPN, I started off in a department called Sales Quality Control. More on that later. But during my time there, I met a lot of good people. And one thing I noticed is that you connect to people who from your hometown. My next guest is also from Maryland, and is the one and only Lucas Haskins. Lucas and I worked in Sales QC together, and not only did he help show me the ropes at work, but he showed me the ropes in Connecticut. Said, hey man, a bunch of us are hanging out, come on out with us. We got a basketball team, which we'll get into that. Come on out, be on the team. And it really helped me feel like home. I always said I didn't go to college, so Connecticut and ESPN was college for me. Lucas and I have been able to maintain a good friendship, a brotherhood for almost a decade now, as he's moved on from ESPN to field production and studio production and live game production. And he's going to get into all of that on this episode. So ladies and gentlemen, here is my conversation with Lucas Haskins. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm excited to bring to you a good friend of mine. When I first started at the 4-letter, he was one of the first people to come to me and say, not only like welcome to the team, but welcome to the life of Connecticut. And boy, did we have fun. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my brother, Lucas Haskins. Lucas, what's up, bro?
Hey, man, I appreciate it. I appreciate you being here. I'll be honest, man, I just wanted to be friends with you because I knew my basketball team needed an enforcer. I needed somebody who's going to come out there and give me minutes and give me 5 fouls every game and keep the other team on lock. And there you were. So, plus my Maryland native, my Maryland brethren, I had to immediately give the love.
Oh man, yeah. We'll definitely talk about the basketball team because look, I'm in much better shape now. I'm ready for a reunion. I can give some better minutes, and I probably can even put up about 8 points now before.
Hey man, I see you, man. You've been putting your journey out there on Twitter, and man, you look great, man. Congratulations.
I appreciate that.
Man, I'll tell you what, you're gonna need to, we need to get offline here. You need to tell me the plan because your boy needs to get on that plan too. about 30 pounds heavier than those Bristol days. That married life has gotten to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, before we get started, man, first and foremost, how you feeling? How you been?
Man, I'm good. New job, kind of new step in my career. So that's great. Probably going to have to move back to Texas in the next year. And so, I wouldn't say I'm looking forward to that quite yet. I only just got back to North Carolina where I've been, trying to be for just about my whole life. So, but it's great, man. Married life is good. We're probably going to start looking at starting a family in the next year or two here, man. So, it's all love, man. Things are good.
That's awesome. So, I mentioned at the top, we met at ESPN, but when did you know you wanted to get in the media business?
Man, it was definitely high school. I was the type of kid, Saturday mornings, I'd flip on Sports Center, especially, I'd do cartoons for a little bit there, but once I got to be about 10, 11, 12, I started watching Sports Center, and so I learned pretty quickly I was not going to be the athlete on Sports Center, but there's other people on Sports Center. They aren't necessarily scoring the goals, but they're talking about the goals being scored. And so I kind of looked to that path. And for so long, originally, that's what I thought it was going to be. The on camera stuff, and behind a desk. I was never really into like the calling a game type
Okay.
thing, which is funny because once I got into the industry on the producer director side, that's what I wanted to do, the live game. But studio was kind of where I thought I wanted to be. And I mean, you know how it was when we were growing up, man. Sports Center was the coolest thing on the block. Great, fun announcers, fun talent. They used to, have fun in their shows, and man, that was kind of the golden era of Sports Center there. So, I think once I kind of saw that and saw that that was a career opportunity, I was like, all right, what do I got to do to get there?
Yeah. So when you said, high school, you definitely knew. How did you go about selecting colleges?
Um, it's funny because it's crazy how fast and quickly this industry changes. And like, if I were entering college now, a school that produces their own broadcasts, specifically like an ESPN Plus partner school, like SEC, ACC, obviously with their networks and their relationship with ESPN, but even an ESPN Plus school, like school in the Sun Belt, school in the MAC, school in any of the other conferences that have that partnership. I mean, that would be at the top of my list,
Hmm.
because like the opportunity that these 18, 19, 20 year olds are getting now is incredible. I mean, they're doing things that, it took me 4 years at ESPN before I ever touched a graphics machine.
Right.
And I'm teaching this stuff to 18-year olds now. I got freshmen coming in. They just got done with orientation. They're still finding out where their dorm is, and then they're running graphics for me on a broadcast. Week one. So that would have been a big part of my decision. But for me back then, it was just, I knew I wanted to be in North Carolina. I spent a lot of time growing up in Wilmington. My grandmother had a beach place down there, so I'd spend my summers there. And when the time came to look for schools, I was like, oh, look, there's a school right here on the beach. And the school was 66% female, so that helped make the decision a little bit easier for me. No football team, ironically. So for such a big sports guy, I picked a school that had no football team, still has no football team. Obviously not a FBS school, one of the top 10 conferences. Was a D1 school, had a good basketball program. I was actually a freshman there, coming off the Drew Nichols three-pointer in the corner by
Mm,
Maryland in that round one, and then he runs in the locker room afterwards. That was versus UNCW. So that was kind of,
oh,
they were just kind of starting to get that national exposure on the basketball level.
yeah.
And in fact, my freshman year, they had a 19-point lead on George Washington at the half, in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and they didn't hold off. They didn't hold that out and ended up losing. But I'm really happy with my college decision, and I did get the opportunity to do some studio shows and produce and direct some stuff, and that's kind of where the transition for me happened from that. Oh, I want to be on camera to wait a minute. I kind of like this in the control room type stuff.
Okay. Now, how did your opportunity, like, how did you get to Bristol?
Man, I mean, first and foremost, I got to thank my godmother. She had been, she was a news director with a couple different ABC affiliates over her career, from lower tier in Durham, North Carolina, to Chicago. And so she had a couple mentors who were, heavily involved on the VP side of things with ABC, and even one of them sat on the board at ESPN. And so always having, this industry, every industry is, who and certainly this one as well. And so I think that helped me get the foot in the door, a little bit,
Hmm.
but I applied that year between college graduation and starting in Bristol. I think I applied for 7 or 8 different openings with ESPN, probably a total of 15 to 16 times. I think I'm pretty sure the HR department was just sick of seeing me flood their email inbox. So they were like, just give this kid an interview and let's see what he can do.
Wow. So,
So,
what year did you get there? So I know I came up in
so I,
2013. You had been there a while.
yeah, 12 actually, February of
Okay.
2012. Yeah, that's when I started. So, yeah, I'd been there a little over a full year by the time you had gotten there, so I was a little more
Hmm.
familiar with kind of how things were going. And yeah, spent 4 years up in Bristol before I went down to Charlotte. So, I owe my whole career to ESPN. There's no question about it. They taught me, what it means to be the worldwide leader. And there's obviously always ups and downs with any company. And you
Hmm.
can talk, I'm sure there's plenty of people who have stories. And but that I owe who I am as a producer and where I am in this career to my time and experience there, and the handful of producers and coordinating producers that helped me along the way and have been mentors for me, not just during my time there, but since leaving as well.
Well, yeah, let's touch on some of that, because one of the things about the company, like you said, everybody has, great stories and horror stories.
Yep.
But the best thing to me that came out just a year ago, yeah, but a little over a year ago, I'm in your backyard with you, Ballot, and Bache. And
Yeah.
that's lifelong bonds,
Yeah.
lifelong friendships. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because sure, you go to a job, that's fine. But when you can create those lifelong friendships, I'm at the Ringer now. Cassius Fleming, before he left, he was my manager. He was on our basketball team. You
Yep.
feel me?
Yep.
And so it's just amazing. Like, you meet people in this business and you create these lifelong bonds that you never know. Like, you may run across them down the line in another path, another company. But when you was there, what was your first assignment? Did you start off in the studio or did you start off in the event?
Yeah, no, I was studio. I was studio
Okay.
based. So I was, your typical screening PA.
Mhm.
I actually wasn't on highlights that much. I know that's such
Aren't
a
you lucky?
yeah. I mean, I got involved in it, but I think I first started. Everybody gets those Sports Center shifts. Prompting.
Mhm.
And I did a good job at that, and it's it's not the most demanding job in the world, but it's an important one. And there's
Yeah.
some people that just kind of took it lackadaisically, and I approached it with a professional mentality, and I think that producers respected that, and directors respected that, and enjoyed working with me there. And I eventually, I do the B-roll shifts inside screening, the tease bump unit, making some of that stuff. But then I think kind of like the real big kind of moment for me there was when I was asked to work the overnight shift, the Sports Center overnight shift. So, that was a brutal shift. Obviously, it changes your whole life. You start work at midnight, you get off
Mhm.
at 10, 11 a.m. It changes the whole way you live your life. But that's really what kind of pushed me, and finally gave me that final push to let people put me on the event side, because that's where I
Mhm.
wanted to be. I wanted to be on that event side, and I think it was 2013 was the year I was doing that overnight shift, and that was the year ESPN did the global X Games thing.
Mhm.
They had 6 X Games events, in Barcelona, in Munich, Germany, in Foz do Iguaçu, Brazil, Tigna, France, and then also the two in the United States. And it was a company priority that year, and
Yeah.
they put a huge emphasis on that. And so, I grew up watching and loving X Games. I rollerbladed growing up, and I went to X Games growing up when they were in Philly, and so that was I was always pushing those stories. Like we'd hit Sports Center and I'd be like, yo, the ending to Barcelona was crazy. Nigel like hit this hard flip over the hubba to win it on his last run. And my producer was like, dude, shut up. I don't care. And so I think I legitimately, like, I think finally he was again sick of me talking about X Games. So he sent an email to Esther, shout out Esther Van Houston, and she
Yep.
was said, hey, this kid will not stop talking to me about X Games, see what he can do for you. And I actually teleprompted those X Games. So it was like, I got that teleprompting kind of skills and rep over on the studio side. And it was one of the few remote events that actually had a teleprompter. And that was wild because,
Mm.
my talent is in Brazil. And I'm
Wow.
running a teleprompter from the studios in Bristol. And they'd hire some runner there basically to kind of be the point person there and refresh the script or whatever was needed at the time. And so I'm communicating with this person, who English is their second or third language, and I'm helping them, figure out what to do while also running a tougher. So it was wild, man. But I think I did well then, and I never left event side of productions after that.
But I think something that's key that I want people to take away from this is you had a sport that wasn't your typical. And for me personally, I always thought like that was my weakness in the beginning. Now, of course, they get this partnership or whatever with WWE as I'm on my way out the door. Like, you know how you get to the point, it's like, all right, I'm ready to go. And they had like this stuff where they started covering it, but it was like my last 6 months there, and it was like, yo, I'm just ready to go, whatever, whatever. But you understand the X Games more than anybody. And I always would tell people, like, you want to go to ESPN, make sure you learn a sport besides basketball, baseball, and football, and even hockey, you know, and truthfully, even soccer. Like, shout out to Kyle, who was on my softball team. He was still killing it with tennis, and he just celebrated 10 years. I'm like, wow, dude, this is awesome. You're still doing your thing. So it's like, if you could have that one sport, unless let's be real, unless you're like somebody who come from, you played Division 1 football or baseball or basketball with a top tier athlete, of course you're gonna get priority. But you got to work your way up, and it's fine. But if you can get like that one sport that not everybody knows, and you can essentially own it, it helps. And it's good to see that you was able to do that with X Games.
Yeah, I mean, it's so huge, like you said. I mean, if you're applying for jobs at ESPN, especially on the production side, like you love
Hmm.
sports. You've been into this your whole life. And if you love sports, like basketball, football, baseball, hockey, soccer, at least a little bit. Some
Yep.
of those more than others, but if lacrosse, which is
Yeah.
now huge. ESPN has invested huge into lacrosse now. That they got the ESPN Plus partnership, the Premier Lacrosse League, and all that stuff is on E Plus now. And if you can have that niche sports, that even the golfs, the tennises, even a little bit soccer,
Hmm.
outside of iNet downstairs, and there's not much
Right.
soccer on Sports Center. And so even if you know that soccer, like you go down there and you got this whole group of people, they're producing 24/7 soccer content, studio shows around soccer. And if you know it, like you're in. And
Hmm.
so having that ability, man, that's one of those things that can separate you, for sure, especially at a company like that. You've got to find a way to differentiate yourself from everybody else. There's what, 200, 250 PAs. We're all in our, late, early, mid, late 20s. We're all fresh out of college, or, maybe done one or two other jobs before we got there. We all are kind of in the same realm. But if you can be
Hmm.
like, oh, hey, I know lacrosse, I know X Games, especially if it's an entity that ESPN is putting emphasis on,
Hmm.
how much more valuable are you now?
Okay, folks, now you can own more Breaking Through Glass Ceilings merch. Not only can you get the Breaking Through Glass Ceilings t shirt, but also the No Ceilings Above Your Success t shirt. Visit foryourwear.com/Brian H. Oh, did I mention we got hoodies now? Y'all know it's hoodie season. So, fellas, grab your hoodie, get an extra one for your ladies as well. Let me ask you this: when you was working overnight, did you wear your suits? Because I remember, and the reason why I asked this, folks, because one of the things Lucas told me about was, if you want to get an event, go network with producers. And you gave me, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but you gave me a producer's name to go talk to about getting on Little League World Series.
Yeah.
And when I went to set up an appointment, sent the email, set up an appointment. This is a key from here first. First of all, is you never stop networking. Once you get in the job, you still continue to network. But I went there and I sat in his office, and he told me like the process and everything. And I said, yeah, I was referred to you by Lucas Haskins. He said, oh yeah, great guy. He said, did he have on his tie today? And so you built the reputation for wearing
Yeah.
suits. And so, did you have on your suits overnight?
Oh yeah, yeah, I did, man. I was suit PA, man. I mean, I'll be
Yeah.
honest. It wasn't until I was full time remote side of things, when your schedule's kind of, you're making it, you're doing a lot of traveling, you're kind of
Hmm.
stuck down in that basement of, what was it, like building 4, building 3.
Yeah, or something like
You
that.
know, yeah. So kind of then it started to fade out a little bit, but definitely those first 2, 3 years, man, I was suit PA, and my godmother, the one who helped kind of link me with some people to originally get the job. Advice she gave me: dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Hmm.
And I didn't know what I wanted to do at that point, but it was a way to brand myself. And I mean, I didn't even come in with that mentality, like, okay, everybody's gonna know me as Soup PA. I just came in like, look, I want people to know I care about this, and I'm here, and I'm ready to work, and I'm here to grind and look good while I do it. But I became Soup PA, and like you said, Matt Sanduli was the guy I sent you to,
Yeah. Yep.
for Little League World Series. And it was the fact that he said that. And then I actually, my first kind of full season on a sport, on the remote side of things, for those of you who aren't employees, they draft like that. Like,
Yeah.
all the coordinating producers sit in a room and they draft. And like Monday Night Football gets first dibs, and college football gets second dibs, and they draft APs, they draft PAs, they draft all these people, and so my name was in the pool, and NASCAR was drafting for their features unit, and my name got presented to them. Hey, this kid does good edits, he does good work, and the coordinating producer at the time, Kate Jackson, she hadn't met me yet, she didn't know me, and she said, hey, who is this kid? And they go, oh yeah, he wears a suit every day, and she goes, sign him up, I want him. And like that's
Mm.
how I got on NASCAR, and man,
Wow.
that was one of the most fun years of my life, man. At 2014,
Hmm.
NASCAR season is a grind from February to November, and
I remember you invited me
um,
to a race. I was mad I couldn't get the one, but I remember you invited me
yeah,
to a race.
dude, it's amazing. And you get that hard card, and like
Uh,
any track you go to, like show that hard card, full access. You want to go to the garage, like go to the
wow.
garage. You want to stand on the pits, and it was great, man. And again, we talk about that niche sport coverage.
Hmm.
2014 was the last year ESPN had that contract with NASCAR. I knew nothing about NASCAR before I started working with them, but again, like if you came to ESPN and were like, "Oh, I'm a NASCAR guy," like I would have gotten there even quicker,
Yeah.
because this sport. Oh, you've been watching, the people, you care about it. And so that's just that opportunity kind of set you above from everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked about the job, but let's talk about the Connecticut life, the stories we could tell on air.
Hey, careful, man. Careful, man. You got to be
Oh,
careful
absolutely.
now.
But I had to ride on way earlier in the episodes, and we talked about a special day. I'm gonna pull something out. Let's see. So I had this waiting in my book bag. The year we was undefeated,
Yep.
and I was ready to celebrate. For those who not watching on YouTube or Spotify's app, I got the Big Eagle WWE Championship belt from '98 to 2002. So we fell short in the playoffs.
Yep. Yep.
You know what was worse about that game? Remember Antonio Davis was in the audience?
Yes.
It was
Yes.
standing next to me, and I'm sitting there like, and things was moving fast, and I'm like, "Are we gonna call timeout, or we gonna foul or something?" He was like, "Yeah, I should have fouled about a minute ago if you was gonna slow the game down." I'm like, "Why don't you coach?" But man, we had fun, man. We was like, I think Kalo said we was like the Detroit Pistons. We got one,
We got one.
championship, and Coach Camp still had. Well, she's Coach Camp Nieves now, but she'll always be Coach Camp to us. She still has
Yep.
like that profile picture.
She sure does, man. I still got that picture, man. I still got the intramural championship T-shirt,
Yeah.
ESPN.
Uh,
I still rock that thing. So I got a handful of intramural championships from my time in college, and then that one at ESPN, and that was fun, man. That was so much fun, and like you said, man, them lifelong connections. Like we're always gonna have that squad, and I've got photos of that squad, and I mean every single one of those people on there. I still kind of keep in touch with. It's been a minute since I caught up with Cash, but
mhm.
everybody else, I'm texting DeVry. I keep up with him, and obviously Barron and Luis and
Yeah.
Ballard were in my wedding, and then
Hmm.
you obviously every time I come back to the area, keep up with you. So like you said,
I
man, I mean
just
it's
saw
those.
Corey at NABJ. I
Yeah.
didn't know he was coming. I walked and I was like, like my eyes lit up. I just saw him. I haven't seen
Yep.
Aaron Hilton in a minute, but we had a squad there and we had a squad downstairs, and I always
Yep.
said for me to start off as sales QC, it was the best transition because I didn't come feeling like I was on an island alone, right? There was you and Luis Sanchez on the squad, and shout out to John also, John Rosenberg. I haven't seen him in
John.
a minute,
No.
but yeah, y'all like welcome me into the team, and then you say, okay, this is how you do things. All right, and now, so you want to hang out after work? Okay,
Yep.
I ain't got nothing else to do. And then Bache was like around the corner, and so he started coming around, and then found out he went to Towson, and my sister went to Towson. I was like, oh wait, you from Maryland area too? Okay, so it was all love, and it's always good to be, it's the best thing about social media is seeing what everybody's, still doing well and still doing their thing, and like I said, the basketball stuff was a lot of fun. I think I would love to have a reunion game because I can play better now. Like I'm in much better shape. I want to redeem myself. You know what I mean? And even softball.
Love it. Yeah.
Softball. I remember the one game. It was like on my birthday, and I hit a triple. No, it was not my birthday. It was one game I hit a triple. I think it was like my first game, and it was like a grand slam triple. And I wanted to run home so bad, but I was like, nah, I can't do that because I was on one squad, and then you recruited me. He's like, hey man, look,
Yeah.
you want to come over? I was like, oh, I'm gonna get some time. That go
Yes.
right.
Yes. Yes. I think our team name was E-Search is down.
Yeah, yep.
Shout out shout out E-Search days. I don't even know if that's still a thing anymore, but
I know, right?
yeah. Yeah, that was great, man. I mean, my first exposure to that softball, I was playing on for Rochi's squad.
Me too.
Shout out Rochi, man. One of the first producers that like I felt like I kind of had a connection with, and
Yeah,
was like somebody I could not only like help you out, but like just shoot the shit with,
yeah,
And man, Rochi sounds like runs.
yeah.
I love him, man. I love him, man. But then the PAs kind of started a squad, and it was
hmm
everybody, man. Sanchez was on it, and
Yep.
man, I forgot her name, but she played softball. She would play shortstop. She had an arm. She was so
Remember
good.
Erica
Uh,
Marms was on there?
yeah, Marms was on the
Yep.
squad. She had the wheels, and yeah, man,
Mhm.
that was a lot of fun. I loved those days. But like you said, man, I mean that Connecticut life, man, it's different. It's different. Like you
It is.
come up there, and I mean it's middle of nowhere, bro. Like
Mhm.
the best thing about it is like you're like 2 hours from Boston and an hour from New York, so it's like by the train. It's like, shoot, man, like the best thing about this place is the other places near it. And it's
Yeah.
so, I was always trying to make friends and meet people. And then, I remember what it's like when you first get there. And so, I actually became friends with Luis because they sent out those emails every time a PA started, like a new
Yeah.
group would come in and boom, here's 6 PAs coming in, here's info about them. And Luis was from my hometown, from Rockville,
Mhm.
Maryland. So I shot him a message and he played ball. So I shot
Right.
him a message and I was like, hey man, I'm from Maryland too. What's up? What's up? Also, join my intramural basketball squad. But it was the same with you. Like you were from the
Mhm.
area, and like I remember what it's like you first be there. And look, I'm trying to make friends too. I'm trying to. I get off work and I don't have anything to do. So
Mhm.
what's up? Let's start hanging out. And I loved it, man. And like you said, man, made lifelong connections. Some of them like personal, some of them professional.
Yeah.
And you said it so well earlier, man. I mean, I just started my new job here at Flo Sports. Lou Pantola,
Mm.
Pantoja is he's a director here now. I was a teleprompter for him when he directed Sports Center.
Wow.
He remembered me, the suit kid who was in screening, and like he remembered me. And like a couple APs I was working with in Charlotte, they're here now. One of the coordinator or one of like the head honcho big shot guy who was in Charlotte and then Austin for a while. He's here now. Like this industry it is it's crosses over so much. And
Mhm.
like you don't ever want to burn a bridge. You don't ever want to have someone who's thinking ill things about you or vice versa because they may be your boss the next time around. You know what I mean? Or they may be in a position to hire you or recommend you for a job. And so, the connections that I made up there from a friendship standpoint, like you and Luis and everybody else, but then the professional ones too, man. It's everything. It's where I am and how I got to here 10 years later.
Yeah, man, and it's crazy. It's been 10 years. Because time flies. Um, so you went to you transferred to Charlotte before leaving the company, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I was always trying to get to Charlotte,
I remember that.
and yep,
I
they had
remember thinking like, you trying to leave us, bro? Like, if understanding your love for North Carolina, so it only
yeah,
made sense.
right, right, and it's so different because like I went down to Charlotte,
Hmm.
and like I mean Trevor was already down there. Trevor Bray, shout out
Yeah.
Trevor Bray, one of my best friends in the world. Love that girl. She was already down there, and so
Hmm.
like I already had a relationship with her and everything. But other than that, like I had college friends, and like friends in the area. Like I already had a group of people. So like I didn't really need to like bond with people in the office down there and like get involved with the ESPN click side of things. And but it wasn't like that in Connecticut, So
Yeah.
you kind of had to play that game and make friends up there because you didn't have any other ones. But yeah, transferring to Charlotte was great, man. It got me closer to my family, closer to
Hmm.
friends, and got me that live, in truck, in control room experience, that paid off dividends, down the line.
Now, what's that like? That in truck experience? Because like we heard about like a studio experience. I know when I did social media, I got a chance to really be inside the control room. Like one of my favorite memories is being in there during the Warriors' first championship of this era, and telling them like, no, we need to put Mark Curry's tweet on the screen. Just because maybe a lot of people didn't understand that was in there, understood like his connection, especially with hanging with Mr. Cooper. But like, no, Mark Carey is a real Warriors fan. But what's it like being in the truck and on the road?
Man, that I mean, like the first time I was ever in a control room was, or professional grade control room was college, and like the
Mhm,
first time I hit it, man, you got 10 screens in front of you at least. The ESPN control room, shoot, you got 40, 50 screens in front of you, and it's just the excitement, it's an adrenaline rush, and like it's totally different. And then once it got to the when I got down to Charlotte and I was in trucks a lot more regularly and in those SEC control rooms, it was eye opening, and it's like it was. And then to watch professionals do their thing in those rooms, and the way, I mean, it's art, bro. I'm telling you, man. I mean, people laugh at me when I say it, but live production at any level,
mhm,
at any level.
mhm.
I mean, even studios, newsrooms, stuff like that. But when you're on sports and you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
Like you have no idea. Fans could rush the field, stadium could catch on fire, the water could start leaking out the ceiling. Someone could have a gruesome injury with a bone through the skin. Like these are all things that happen on shows I was on. Like, how do you handle that? How do you treat that? And it's like you can't script it. You don't know what's happening, and it's so exciting, man. And as soon as I started doing, getting around that more, it solidified. It let me know, like, yep, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to be doing. And what Charlotte was doing at that time was they were doing the school control room thing. So there was
Mhm,
no ACC network yet. It was the SEC network, and each of these schools had a control room, and they'd have their students who were all the operators and everything. And ESPN would send in a handful of people. And so I went into these schools, and I'm just like blown away that like this opportunity these students have, and here's this whole world of collegiate athletic broadcast productions, and it really opened my eyes. And again, that experience is what got me the opportunity at Texas State, got me the opportunity at Elon, and then now got me the opportunity here at Flo Sports.
now, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Like, what made you want to really get into the university side? Was it seeing that and really getting the opportunity to, you know, prep these young minds? Because, like, I've heard you talk about the excitement about teaching these kids and the broadcast work that they're doing. When we've talked offline. So, like, what was the motivation? When did the motivation start?
I mean, so part of the thing at ESPN at the time and the cap program we were in, like you get capped out at 6 years.
Hmm.
And I transitioned down to the Charlotte offices, and head count's a lot different down there. They didn't have the same amount of AP openings, and I got capped out. And I hit my 6 years, and I had producers fighting for me, saying like, "This kid is great. We're losing him because of some arbitrary 6 year rule." And they actually changed the rule a few months after I left, and I don't think it's there anymore. But so I was jobless. Like I didn't have
Hmm.
a job, and so I after seeing what these schools were doing, I knew that A, there was the opportunity there, but B, I could sit in the chair there. Like I would be a producer. I could direct shows. I could produce shows. It would have been, if I stayed at ESPN, it would have been years before I got that opportunity. And then you get the opportunity. And it's you get a one-off show here. How'd you do? Let's critique it. 3 or 4 months later, you get another opportunity. How'd you, and it's so far down the line before you get there. But like I started at Texas State year one, 70 broadcasts produced them. Produced and directed some of them as well. Produced a volleyball Sun Belt conference championship year one. Produced a softball championship year one because Texas State was hosting them. So within 4 years there, I was able to put you know 400 plus shows under my belt. And that is, I mean, that is the stuff. It's reps, man. This industry is about the reps because, like we said, especially on the live side, you never know what's going to happen. So the only way you can get better is get those reps, and each one you're going to learn something new. Each director you work with, you're going to learn something new. And so I knew it was a selfish standpoint. I didn't even care about wanting to teach kids at that point. I was like, I just want reps. I want to produce. I know that's what I want to do. I need someone to let me get in the chair. And Texas State was that spot. But as I got into it and I got involved with it, and I'm working with entirely student staff, I'm recruiting them, I'm training them, I'm teaching them, I'm watching them grow in front of me, I'm graduating them, and they're getting jobs in the industry. I mean, I fell in love with that, man, and I fell in love with that more than I fell in love with producing. And that was one of the hardest parts about this transition to flow is I've left that college world, and I'm no longer teaching students,
Hmm.
and helping kids get jobs in the industry and helping kids find passions and find a career.
Yeah.
But I fell in love with that, man.
Man, that sounds exciting. I'm glad you brought that up because sometimes you do have to take that. Like if you're playing Mario 3, you take the whistle and you jump over a few levels. Sometimes you might get knocked back, but you jump over a few levels to get to another level. And I'm pretty sure you ain't got to go into details, but I'm pretty sure it was a nice bump in pay too, as opposed to like being at ESPN. It probably would have taken you several years to get to where you want to get to.
Yeah, I can tell you've never worked in college athletics directly,
Okay.
thinking that there was the bump in pay. That was not that was
It
not
wasn't?
there.
Okay.
No, no, no,
Not
no,
even
no, no,
not
not
even
at all.
close?
No, not even close. Well,
Okay.
especially at ESPN, when you're a PA, even when you're an AP, you get overtime. So you get time and a half over
Yeah.
40 hours. And when you're that event side, that ESPN, uh, that NASCAR year, I made
Ooh,
more money that NASCAR year than I made, from one job at least until I got this job at Flo.
okay.
Just because I was doing 50, 60-hour weeks back to back to back to back to back. And it's like time and a half, time and a half, time and a half. So,
Yeah.
I was scheduled to make X. Now I'm making 1.5X, at the end of the year. But that was a big thing, man. And it's a huge, we could have a whole discussion on this and podcast on this is, the college industry is and the professional industry with sports teams and leagues is the same way. Everybody wants that job and they know they can underpay because
That's true.
someone's going to take it, and so yeah, I got the bad end of that stick there.
Oh
um
man.
but but again, the opportunity, the reps, it was what propelled me to the point where I am now and got me to this point where I can be the most comfortable I've ever been in my life and be a managing producer here now and have producers working under me that I'm going to help and grow and train because I have 5 years of experience in that chair, doing what you're doing.
So what's it like there now? You say you have Flow Sports.
Hmm.
You don't have to go into too many details, but what's it like? What's the experience like? How long you been there?
Man, this is week 3 right now, so
Okay.
this is all still new and fresh right now, but I'm so excited, man. We talked about this 15, 20 minutes ago. The small sports and understanding those small sports.
Hmm.
um that is what Flow is doing.
Okay.
They looked at the landscape and they saw, okay, ESPN is paying billions of dollars to broadcast SEC football, billions of dollars to broadcast NFL, to broadcast Big Ten football. We don't want in that game. I don't. They don't want to fight for those scraps that are left at the table of D2, D3 football, basketball, stuff like that. Why? Because they will never be able to do what ESPN does, what Fox Sports does, what CBS does. They're not technologically there. They're not there from the people standpoint. So why do that? So instead, what sports aren't being served? And it's actually that's like how the company started. Like it started with a couple brothers, one of them a wrestling athlete in college, like not not your type of wrestling,
I
but
know
like
what you mean.
Olympic wrestling, and
Yeah.
the other was a track cross country guy. And they're sitting there, they're like, there is no coverage for our sports. There's no
Hmm.
show that's talking about what's going on. There's no editorial content. There's nowhere I can go and look at standings and results from the last event. There's nowhere that's broadcasting these things. So they're like, let's cover this. So they rent. I mean, this story is great. I love stories like this. They like bought like a $2,500 beat up old used van. It broke down the first time they drove it, and they drove halfway across the country to go to some like marathon cross country event. They film it with the camera, take it home, edit it that night, put up the video. It shut their servers down. Night one,
Wow.
shut their servers down. The traffic to it, and so they went, oh, okay, there is a market here. And so that's what they're doing. Like
Hmm.
cross country, cheerleading, band, marching band competitions,
Nice.
grappling, wrestling, and even hockey below the NHL level. Nobody's doing that stuff.
Mhm.
Nobody's covering that stuff, but there are athletes, there are fans, there are friends and family, there are alums of these programs, there are people that want this content. And you talk to someone who follows track, and or cross country, and you mention the name Flo, they're like, oh my God, I love Flo. Flo
Mhm.
gives me what nobody else does. NBC covers, track once a year for the Worlds, once every 4 years for the Olympics, and then it's not heard of again. And so
Mhm.
Flo said, look, there is this gap in the market. Let's scoop that up. Let's become the essential destination for these fans, whether it's the broadcast, editorial content, or the data, the statistics, the standings. Let's be the one-stop shop for all of those things, just like ESPN is for everything else. And so I believe in their model so much. And they spent so long just trying to get stuff on air. Now they want to do stuff, elevate the level. And so that's why they went in and brought in the people who've been doing this for decades, and the people
Mhm.
who have the experience with this, so that their broadcast can now start getting better. And people are like, oh, that was a good show. I want to watch the next one. I'll pay the monthly fee because the content is worth it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of you, man. Proud of all the work you've been doing, and definitely grateful for our friendship and brotherhood and everything that you've been able to like help me with, especially in, the early days and even to this day. Like, we can always like exchange information, like, hey, how you do this, that, and the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, man, I always ask people this. When did you break through the glass ceiling? When did you realize, like, when was that moment when you've been in the industry where you was like, I know exactly what I'm doing now. This is how I take everything to the next level.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've had a couple of those.
Mhm.
Like the first time in college when I got to produce and direct, it was just a news show. But I was like, man, I love this. And that was when I made that kind of change from, okay, I want to be on camera to I want to be in the control room. And so
Mhm.
that kind of I don't know if I broke through a glass ceiling there. It was just a little rinky-dink college show that like 30 people watched a week, but it gave me the mindset like, okay, I know where I'm going and where I want to be. But I'll never forget. I'm in a control room at Arkansas. First control room I worked with. This is when I transferred down to Charlotte. They send me to University of Arkansas to do a back-to-back soccer volleyball Thursday night, Friday night. I'm going to be the AP for both those shows, so I'm going to be in charge of graphics. So I'm sitting
Mhm.
on the back bench and I'm watching the show go down. And at one point, the director is like kind of getting open together, and he's getting a sequence of stuff together, and they got something out of place. And the student who's running the replay, he kind of misunderstood the director, and we're getting ready to go live with it. We're maybe like 30, 45 seconds to live. And I just say real quick, I'm like, hey, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's what you want there. And he looks at it and he's like, oh, good catch. You're right. That's not right. Switch it up. Get this. And it's just like that moment I was like, oh, okay, I have the eye. Like I get this. Like I understand what this is. And I didn't get some big promotion after that or like start getting a bunch of extra gigs. I think I got like a good job pat on the back after the show, but it just let me know like you should be here. Like this is your
Mhm.
place. You get this. You're good at this, and this is where you're meant to be. And then obviously the first time I ever sat in the chair producing, at the end of the night, I was like, yep, I did it. I did this thing. Like here I am, 6 years after teleprompting for Stuart Scott. Now here I am sitting in a chair producing Division 1 college athletics that a couple thousand people are watching. And that was when I was like, all right, I'm here. I'm here now. I just gotta keep taking it to the next level.
Man, that's such a great story. Real quick, how many states have you worked in? Would you say like
Oh,
is it over
geez.
under 30?
Well, I mean, are you talking about like show up and like do a gig? Like,
Yeah,
oh, you
show up and
worked in
do a
that
gig
state?
because it felt
Oh
like
my
you've been
God.
all over the country.
Bro, when I was on that motors year,
Yeah.
I had to pay taxes in the state of Indiana because I was there so much. I did
Wow.
I did because I did the Indy 500, and that's like a 3-week thing. And then I did the women's college final four. I was there for
Yeah.
2.5 weeks. That was in Indy. And whenever you work above a certain amount of days, you got to pay taxes in that state. So I paid taxes in 2 states that year, income tax. Man, I don't know if it's 30, but it's close. It's close.
Yeah.
That's a fun question, man. I would love to sit down and kind of think about that. I'm definitely all over the southeast and east coast for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
Man,
Yeah, man. You know what? It might be 30. It might be damn near close to 30. And recently, in the past 4 or 5 years, I've centralized to the Texas State control room and then the Elon
mhm.
control room. But I still did the freelance thing. So I mean, I
Yeah.
still did California for this and Washington for that, and I've never been to Montana
Okay.
or the Dakotas. So I guess I gotta check those off the list somehow.
Yeah, because like I know, people said to me like, "Man, you travel all the time." I'm in New York. I went to Nashville this year. I also worked in Dallas for WrestleMania, and where Johns Hopkins, Vegas, New Orleans, Atlanta. But I'm
Hmm.
like, y'all, I'm like, that ain't much. I said I got friends who go,
Yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah,
it,
especially, I mean, if you get like assigned to a sport, and it's like
yeah.
NASCAR or college football, you're just a different place every weekend. It's wild. I mean, my producers here at Flow, some of them that I'm working with, I mean, they're home, you know, 8 days, 9 days a month, and then it's just come home on the road. And then sometimes they go gig to gig. Hey, I'm in California
Mhm.
for this gig. Well, now I'm just going right to Florida from there. And then I'll
Yeah,
go to Texas from there, and then I'll come back home for 2 days and do some laundry, and then do it all over again. It's a crazy industry, man.
yeah. Well, man, I definitely appreciate you taking this opportunity. You know the deal. Let me know when you be back in Maryland. Whether you're in Texas or North Carolina, I'll let you know when I'm down there.
Yeah,
And we'll definitely link up, bro.
yeah. No, it's great, man. And hey, I appreciate you saying everything about kind of keeping up and seeing what I do with my career, man. And the exact same thing right back at you, man. I mean, I love that kind of you've always known what you like and what you want to do, and whether it's wrestling or whether it's the social media or the content creation or producing this or all this stuff, man. And then even I know how involved you are with your church and the music and the drumming, man. I love seeing you do your thing, man. And it just makes me so happy, man, that if you have that passion and you have that drive, you can find a way in any industry. And sometimes it's a roundabout way, and sometimes it starts part time and starts freelance. But I love seeing what you've been doing with your career, and love keeping up with you, man. So it's all love, all love.
Appreciate you, bro. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, make sure y'all check out Lucas' work when he tweets, or well, he he has the best sports takes at Lucas Haskins. And remember, don't let anybody place a ceiling above your success. So long, everybody.